Hallo, ich bin's, Robin, Deutschlehrer mit Core Languages, and I wanted to show you another blossom of the crepe myrtle tree. This one's pink. They are beautiful flowers, and they are wonderful tools to help me explain the grammatical cases in German. Think about it this way. I can look at the flower, or I can see the flower. Ich sehe die Blume, and the flower is the direct object of me looking at it. But I can also give the flower to someone. For example, I give the flower to you, in which case you are the indirect object of my action, which is to give. The flower is in the accusative case, and you are in the dative case. Now, you might already detect that some verbs typically only require a direct object. For example, I see the flower. I don't need an indirect object here. I don't really say I see the flower to you. But other verbs, like to give, need an indirect object because I can't really say I give the flower. To who? You want to know who are you giving the flower to. So in today's video, I'm going to show you some basic verbs that require the dative case in German so that you can incorporate them into your German sentences. I would say los geht's und viel Spaß beim Deutschlernen.
Dative verbs. Before we look at some dative verbs, it is important to remember the dative case endings for articles, both definite and indefinite, and personal pronouns in the dative case. If a noun that is masculine is in the dative case, the article changes to dem and einem. For example, der Kaffee turns to dem Kaffee or einem Kaffee. A feminine noun, for example, die Birne, the pear, turns to der Birne or einer Birne. A neutral noun, for example, das Brot, the bread, turns to dem Brot and einem Brot. A plural noun, for example, die Tomaten, the tomatoes, turns to den Tomaten or keinen Tomaten, no tomatoes. If a person is the indirect object in a sentence, the personal pronouns change to mir, dir, ihnen, and ihm, ihr, ihm. Me, you, formal you, him, her, and it. Uns, euch, ihnen, ihnen. Us, you, formal you, and them. There are some verbs in German that require the dative case or the case of the indirect object. Here are some examples of regular dative verbs, and notice how the English translation often goes with someone. For example, antworten, to answer someone. Begegnen, to run into someone or to encounter someone. Danken, to thank someone. Fehlen, to lack or to be missing. Folgen, to follow. Gehören, to belong to. Glauben, to believe. Gratulieren, to congratulate. Passen, to fit. Schmecken, to taste. The verbs helfen, to help, gefallen, to be pleasing to, and wehtun, to hurt, are some examples of irregular dative verbs. These three verbs can also be followed by someone in the English translation. Feel free to repeat after me. Ich helfe, du hilfst, sie es hilft, sie helfen. Wir helfen, ihr helft, sie helfen. Ich gefalle, du gefällst, sie es gefällt. Sie gefallen. Wir gefallen. Ihr gefallt. Sie gefallen. Ich tue weh. Du tust weh. Er, sie, es tut weh. Sie tun weh. Wir tun weh. Ihr tut weh. And sie tun weh. Here are some examples or Beispiele of dative verbs in use. Pay attention to the indirect object that follows the verb. For example, gratulieren, to congratulate. Ich gratuliere Ihnen. I congratulate you, sir, or you, ma'am. Helfen, to help. Hilf mir. Help me. Folgen, to follow. Du folgst dem nächsten Radfahrer. You follow the next bicyclist. Begegnen, to encounter or to run into someone. Sie ist ihm beim Supermarkt begegnet. She has encountered him or she has run into him at the supermarket. Here are a few more Beispiele. Again, pay close attention to the indirect object that follows the dative verb. Fehlen, to miss. Im Wohnzimmer fehlt mir ein Sofa. If I were to translate the sentence directly, I would say, in the living room, a sofa is missing to me. Or, I am missing a sofa in the living room. Gehören, to belong. Gehört dir das? Does this belong to you? Schmecken, to taste. If schmecken is used by itself without a specific adjective, it means to taste good. For example, Eis schmeckt mir. Ice cream tastes good to me. Passen, to fit. Die Bluse passt ihr. The blouse fits her. Let's practice. Üben wir. Look at the following two pictures and sentences and choose between the verbs fehlen, to miss, and danken, to thank. Again, pay close attention to the indirect object that follows the dative verb. Du mir so sehr. The correct verb would be du fehlst mir so sehr. I could loosely translate it by saying, I miss you so much, but if I were to translate it directly, I would say, you're missing to me so much. Ich euch für die Blumen. The correct verb is danken. Ich danke euch für die Blumen. I thank you for the flowers. And how about these examples? Choose the correct dative pronoun for the formal you plural. Hat es geschmeckt? The dative pronoun for formal you is Ihnen. Hat es Ihnen geschmeckt? Did it taste good to you? And how about this example? Choose the correct conjugation for help. Bitte uns. This sentence is in the imperative, so the correct conjugation is Bitte hilf uns. Please help us. Look at the next example and try to choose the correct article in the dative case. Antwortete Lehrerin. Lehrerin is the female teacher. Die Lehrerin is the nominative case. Die Lehrerin in the dative case changes to der Lehrerin. Antwortete der Lehrerin. He answered the teacher. And how about this example? Choose the correct dative pronoun for him. Wir haben zum Abschluss gratuliert. Ihm. Wir haben ihm zum Abschluss gratuliert. We have congratulated him for graduation.
Vielen Dank fürs Zusehen. I hope you now have a better understanding of how to use dative verbs. As always, if you have more questions, feel free to comment, or if you're interested in joining one of our German courses with a live instructor, feel free to message us directly. Das war's, vielen Dank und bis zum nächsten Mal.